Thank you. Eugenio Gomez Reyes from UAM, Ixtapalapa, who is asking, does INEGI have information on underground water? And do you have projects for the underground water network? Well, in this regard, INEGI has compiled information in regard to underground water. They have cartographies on underground water. And in regard to the networks, the water networks is a bit more complex. But in regard to the issues where we have an incidence of a loss of water, and also those where we have located the underground water tables, we need the collaboration, as we said in the panel, of other agencies, state governments, municipal governments, the main agencies that are related to the water activities, SEMARNAT, CONAGUA, who have carried out geographical zones surveys, so that we may create a project that will help us manage the information. On the other hand, Nicolás González Juárez from the Polytechnical National Institute is asking if they can use the water data with the phase to work with the SIGs. And as Doctora Elena Kotrek mentioned, now in this regard, SEAT to us is very dynamic. We compile, we gather more information, but the information that we have at the Institute that is available, the data, the information on the water network can be downloaded from the Seattle. Now, the geographic information systems, we have created a system that was known as the IRIS platform. The IRIS platform had a format where the information was encrypted, and it was difficult to work with it following the SEP standards. Now we will launch the desk digital map, where we will be able to read information from IRIS as well as other types of formats. And this availability, this will be launched through the page of the Institute. This will be presented in free. This information will be free, but the important thing is to have the data that can be drawn from the INEGI page with the information. They can be downloaded, and what the Seattle system has in regard to all this information, the way it's handled. We have another question from Omar Tapia from the Geo Center. The problem of the punctual measurements for the rainfall, for the coverage, and how it is generated through interpolation, and thus it prevents the capture of the space variability. And part of the products of the satellite products allow to capture better measurements of the space variability, since the rainfall is a primary variability of the water system. And we have thought about mixed systems for punctual measurements, precision, and satellite systems to capture space variability. In this regard, in regard to your concern, of course, it is understood that we need to involve mathematical models that will help us calculate the rainfall variability, the temperature, and other variables that happen that are so important to be integrated in simulation models. Seattle has not reached this level because of the integration of the information, but we would also need, as Raul said, the economic information. We need you not only because of the critical situation, but the constructive aspects of having contributions from the research groups, from the groups of researchers that will help us see what are the best models to be applied for a national system, something that works for everyone. Now, along these lines, we would also need to work with a different agencies such as the Meteorological Service, information that they can share with us. We need to come up with rainfall and runoff models for all the basins. Well, we can do it as long as we create a group that will make the integration of the information more systematic. Marta Magdalena Chavez Cortez from the University, from Guam, asks, what is the level of cooperation and coordination between INEGI and CONAGUA? Particularly the information system, the collaboration that is here proposed would be made public, or well, in this case, it's open to the public. The cooperation and collaboration system of the information is open, and of course, it goes through a validation filter. If a person takes a picture or submits specific information, it'll go through a specific filter to see if the image shown is an image that is related to the site. That is the way we start. But in the near future, I think it would be worthwhile to do it that way. Thank you, Raul. So I now give the floor to Professor Elena Kotler. Thank you. Well, I have four questions. One for Oscar Leal from CONAGUA on how is a model for the monitoring system, taking into account that there are financial limits, how to determine the sampling sites. Well, the sampling sites are not something that we have invented. Everything related to water quality has been worked by the management on water quality from CONAGUA, who provided the data. And this is the way we realized that our sampling sites cannot interpret the issues of the basins, and CONAGUA already has an idea to increase the sampling sites. It's not that they have been left alone, that they have been forsaken. They do have a plan, and I think that the main restraints are financial limitations. There's been a budget cut in regard to all investments, current investments. But if we create a sampling site, we must recognize that there are middle cities with a large growth rate, and our water systems are important. This is a variable that has to be incorporated here. We need to have information on the main contamination sources by organization of the basin to retrieve the information to know what are the most important contaminants that have to be gauged and measured. And of course, in regard to the basin, superficial waters, what are the water streams, and then to work on a basin per basin system. A book was published by Line in regard on the water network, social vulnerability, and the floodings, and very transparent. so that you can review it in detail, economic, demographic, and population dimensions at the level of the localities, and based on the functional zones of the basin. Flooding in the lower basin is not the same as a flooding in the upper basin, so please review the documented PDF in the Lina website. Now, Lina Suarez from the Polytechnical Institute. So, conclusion, what percentage of reliability are in the results you have published in your book? The data have been produced by other institutions. So, as you know, they would have to go through a verification phase. We verify the data. This is why we don't use the data on water quality, because the moment we knew how they were produced, we decided that for our own purposes, they were not the most convenient ones. We do verify them, but the book encompasses about 30 subject matters, different subject matters. So the reliability of the data for every topic is discussed in every chapter. And obviously there are topics that have to do with direct indicators, sanitation per basin. So we take out the data and extrapolate it to the basin. Others are more complex that are extrapolated to models. So many data interrelate, produced by many sources with different purposes, and certainly the reliability decreases. So now what we're trying to do is to verify in some basins the models. Armando Treyes from IMCA, who proposes the use of the hydrographic encrypting of hive pepper, and you have heard about basins a great deal. And the interesting thing is to see if we can harmonize these basin notions. Everybody who has spoken about basins speak about different delimitations and boundaries of the basins. Now we need to harmonize this definition, how to code them, how to encrypt them, how to classify them, and that has to do together with other topics that have to be discussed further on. Thank you, Elena. Ricardo Pisuto. You have many, so please integrate all the answers. Mr. Velasquez from INEGI asked me if SENA has a view on the populations and the sewage systems. Yes, we work on it with INEGI information every 5 years, estimates. The technical departments make technical estimates, publishing the data on the intermediary cities. And these are the most reliable data. Camilo Vázquez Bustos from INCA. How can we have quality metadata that can be accessed easily from the water monitoring network? Well, most data we do have metadata in SENA, but in the publication of Statistics of Water in Mexico, this is a book where we cannot enter all these data, but if you write to SENA, we can give you the information. G. Gonzalez from UAM. In what phase of the project do we open a space for the citizens? The SENA is an information system, and this planning system that has been created to open a space for the citizens. As of 2010, we launched a fora on the water agenda. This was a non-precedented effort by the federal government for public consultation. So an effort was made to ask the citizens and to ask them what are the main issues they have to face. Of course, we invited the different operating units and organizations. So SENA does not have the mechanism, but as part of the planning mechanism, it has all these requirements, and that is the way it works. So Daniel Garcia Lopez from IMCA, the monitoring sites suffice to gauge a situation of superficial and underground waters. As Professor Kotler said, no, they're not. They do not suffice. The monitor parameters suffice. No, they don't. If you consult the characteristics of water, you can see how the monitored parameters have decreased. And this is related to what the doctor said. We need an important investment in the sector. It's not that we do not want to publish the data. The reason is that we do not have sufficient investment in the monitoring network to publish them on a daily basis. But through the water agenda and other initiatives, we have encouraged these punctual investments and requesting Congress to please give us that entry, that item, that resource item. So the data, yes, the data are reliable. And what is a cooperation level between INEGI and COLAGUA? Well, I would say we have a high level of cooperation. With INEGI, we meet regularly. The mechanism through which we follow up the information is through CETAGUA. And yesterday we had the first meeting of the year. We meet to implement the agenda for the year, and the group has been formed, or we form groups for specific tasks. Task groups. And then a complicated question by Carol Farrell from WAM. SENA presents aggregated data for the decision-making process, but they have adopted the methodology of water drooping networks that doesn't work because of its aggregated indicator. Why do you use that system instead of the life cycle system? Well, I don't know that we use that methodology in SENA. Maybe another entity uses that, and there's a confusion that SENA works with that methodology, but it's not, but not at all. I don't know. We do not use that methodology. Hence, the answer here is I don't know. Thank you, Raúl. This is a question, but they ask, how do we use the information on water? What's the real water, the value of water without the subsidies? In the agriculture, how can we determine the cost of water? Who uses the water should pay for the conservation, but it's more of a slogan. And what the water accountings in regard to the basin. It's important that we review the publication of INEGI in regard to the basins, and also the manual on the accounting of water with ideas on how we can measure the resources. The prices, the real price and the social price, they're different because the manual recommends the shadow prices for measurements of water and take away the subsidies using a production account and extract a residual value and then take the constructive use of the resource. We can establish a price. Nevertheless, but for the cap, I would not dare to get into thorny territory because besides the technical problematics, there is a social issue that is very complicated. If I establish a pricing for water for agriculture today, maybe tomorrow we will have a peasant revolution. So it would seem that has to do with technical issues, but it has to do more with social issues and with additional issues. Uh, in configuring the adequate price, I don't know if we still have the zero subsidy on water and zero payment on water. And this is another issue that we should add up in establishing a price for water. Of course, we have the environment accounts, and in the recent review of the economic and ecological accounts, we have contemplated the impact of the water as part of the measurements. As our colleague said, it's complicated. Sometimes there are issues that give ideas to the measurement of the resource. And this mechanism of those who use the water should pay for it, that has a social bias to it. And so from one side, you charge for the use of water, and on the other hand, you subsidize water for those who don't have that much. So I remember in the World Forum of Water that was already referred to. But we know that the model can be applied for regional systems and programs. Thank you, Raul. Of course, all the questions, remaining questions you might have, maybe at lunchtime we will be able to discuss in our tables. Three questions that are more open questions to close this panel, because everybody has questions, those questions in their head. And basically, I will read that. One is, it would seem that everybody has information about Conagua, and one, but they don't have everything in the same portal to make our life easier. And others must say that they have presented many implementation in the SIGs and everything, but they ask, how come we don't have a common geographical information system? And a third question that has to do with the information systems and the information in the goodly enterprise. And let me talk about first, why don't we have a statistic and geographic information system that is common to everyone? That would be more logical. Let me tell you, even though it's logical, it's complicated for different reasons.
Maybe you're not aware of this, but much of the information at the SEMARNAT, CONAGUA, INEGI portals is an integrated system, especially in the charger information. If you put information of the hydrographic network, this is being connected to the server of the INEGI to give you the information that has to be do with CONAVIO, CONAGUA, INEGI, that forms part of the charter service that has to do with these institutions. So the next logical state was to integrate the databases of the three agencies, but this presents many problems. The first one is that if you know who opens a portal to exchange information, he will answer, how do I guarantee the safety of my services? And this has been the case in CONAGUA and INEGI. We need a server outside the firewall of SEMARNAT, and from there we exchange information so as not to affect the internal network of the organization. It is a complicated problem. Another serious problem, less in geography than in statistics, each one organized the information as they saw fit. So when we want to speak from one system to the other, the catalogs are not the same, the organization of the data is not the same. Even though we have a formal communication channel, we cannot display the same information. This would sound logic, but I might say arrange your data in order to connect to Konawa. It can be an important work and examine the advantages and disadvantages. And if this is complicated at this level in the statistics, it's even more complicated. In statistics, each one has the information they saw fit. And you have the information in Excels, and well, how can we go about it and have access to it? And for these things to work, we'll need a unified system that will work in a connected way and guarantee that all the services are permanently working. I cannot tell you that the information on basins comes formally from the Elena's computer, because at 6 she turns off her computer. She boosted the system. She blew up the system. We need a unified system. We have been working along different lines. I hope that we follow that path, not as fast as I would expect. There is a cartoon by Mafalda saying we are headed in the right direction, but at the wrong speed. We have to be careful with the human condition, because many things cannot be tackled. And I can give you another case as to the integration of the information. The INEFINASA project to carry out a new map of areas that would be considered susceptible to degradation. And they carried this out in Chapingo, and we cannot use it until this is accepted by CONACYT and Chapingo, and they could give us the information in order to be aware of the national surface that is susceptible of degradation. There are many circumstances that you might say are not important, but many of them involve legal issues and matters of liability. We have been working with INEGI within the subsystem, and we are trying to be more and more interoperable, homogeneous, and transparent with information we have. As to Google, INEGI has a project in place, and they will have to talk this over with the vice president of INEGI, to use the platform of Google, which is a common use tool in order to deploy geographic information. We are working on that. Things are complicated. Information rights, when you load it into Google, you have to examine implications and see if I can pass on my map of the different system, of the different cities. And this was expressed by Dr. Soho at the meetings of the National Committee. What we have to do is to have more information that is accessible to facilitate access to the public. It's clear in our minds that implementation is not that trivial, and we hope I will examine it soon enough, but we'll have to be patient. Thank you very much. I will give each one of our speakers the diploma they deserve. And with this, we'll end this session. Raúl Chávez, the diploma. We are grateful for your attendance. I hope you have a good lunch. We will reconvene at 3 o'clock for another